When are you planning to leave your parents' house? Enough is enough.
My husband, Saint, barges into my parents' house, yelling loudly. Enough is enough? That's my line. It was you who ignored me all this time. I have no love left for him. What do you want now? You've been ignoring me all this time. In the next moment, his face turned bright red and he said,
You've gotten pretty cheeky for a wife. Don't think you can act all high and mighty just because you're at your parents' house.
Was he always this rough with his words? Unintentionally, I fell silent, overwhelmed by his intensity. You're really a foolish woman. Well, I'll forgive you this time, so let's go home. He says this dismissively, but I have no intention of going back. Aren't you mistaken? Our life together is already over.
What? What do you mean by that?
Didn't mother-in-law tell you anything? Let me enlighten you. I wonder how long you can keep that attitude. I smirked as I revealed the truth to him. Saint and I got married 2 years ago. We both worked in sales at an electronics parts manufacturer and were colleagues, often going out for drinks after work.
Being with you just feels so calming.
He used to say before we started dating, and I felt the same way. That's probably why we naturally became a couple. We didn't interfere with each other much and weren't overly affectionate, but I felt he was someone I could spend my life with. After a year of dating, he proposed to me. Of course, I said yes. We got married 3 months after the proposal, held a wedding, and started our newlywed life in an apartment close to work. Even though we got married, we didn't plan on having children right away, so I continued working. I'm heading out for a bit. Again. Can you help with the cleaning sometimes? I'm stressed from work. I'll do it next time. See you. Ever since we got married, he would go out almost every weekend morning. He was rarely home during weekends. I understood he was tired from work, but so was I. I didn't expect him to do chores during the weekdays, but as a couple, it would have been nice if he helped out sometimes. My mother also had a similar role in our family, so I accepted that this was just how it was for a wife and tried not to think too much about it. Although it saddened me that he didn't help out, I didn't have any particular hobbies and didn't like going out much. Because of that, doing chores wasn't a burden. I just wanted to hear, "Can I help you?" once in a while. We got married because we didn't interfere with each other, so I didn't push Saint too hard, believing he would eventually help out on his own. One night, a month later. That day, he just said, "I'm going out for drinks," and came home late at night. Who were you drinking with? You stayed out pretty late. I called out to him as he took off his shoes. But he just turned to look at me without saying a word. Then, he ignored me and went into the living room. Again. Did something happen at the drinking party? When he gets in a bad mood, he becomes unusually quiet. At times like this, it's best to leave him alone. I left him in the living room and went to bed. Once it gets to this point, there's nothing more I can do. He won't talk no matter what, and dealing with him only wears me out. He'll probably be back to normal by morning. The next morning, while I was making breakfast, Saint got up. Good morning. Did something happen last night? I greeted him as usual, but he just looked at me without saying anything. He left without a word, taking a drink from the fridge. Huh. Something seems off this time. Usually, he's back to his normal self after a night. I was very confused since this hadn't happened before. Not speaking to me for 2 days straight? He must be really upset. I decided not to dig deeper into his issues and stopped trying to talk to him. I thought I'd just wait and see. That's all I could think of doing. But that night, and even the next day, his attitude didn't change at all. Surely, just waiting around isn't going to fix this, right? I've never been ignored by him for days, and I started to worry that we might not be able to repair our relationship. I tried to arrange a talk with Saint, but he ignored my messages and notes. What could have made him so upset? If it's my fault, he should just tell me. Since he didn't want to talk, I decided to slip a note into his lunch cooler. He always eats his meals at home and returns the empty lunchbox to the sink. I thought he would react if he found a note from me when he opened his lunch at work. But this plan also failed. Running out of options, I decided to take a drastic step. I wouldn't make dinner. Saint came home as usual, but tonight there was no dinner waiting. Surely, this would get him to say something. Saint looked at the empty table and then stared at me. Finally, he's going to say something, right? I held my breath, waiting for him to speak. But to my disappointment, he just walked out of the house. I was stunned by his reaction. Leaving without saying a word? Is this what marriage is supposed to feel like? Being completely ignored by him, I sat on the living room sofa in a daze. Saint didn't come home that night, and I spent the night alone. Even the next morning, there was no sign of Saint. Did he just go straight to work? Then I noticed a note on the table. Don't neglect your duties as a wife. The note was scrawled in messy handwriting. How dare he act all high and mighty without even speaking to me? If he wants to stay married, why is he ignoring me so thoroughly? We haven't had a proper conversation for a month. Seeing the note, my anger towards him exploded. I can't take this anymore. I can't bear this any longer. I'm going back to my parents' house. Being with someone you don't want to talk to is suffocating, so I decided to leave. I wrote that next to his scrawl and went back to my parents' house. It took an hour to get to my parents' house from the apartment I shared with him.
Millie? What happened?
My parents were shocked to see me. Of course, they were. Their daughter had suddenly come home. When I explained that Saint had been ignoring me, they welcomed me warmly without a word.
You must have had a tough time, Millie. You can stay here as long as you need.
Their kind words meant everything to me. I was also relieved to have a place where I could talk.
Thank you. I'll stay here and see how things go with him.
I was grateful to my parents and decided to observe his behavior. That day, of course, there was no contact from him. Normally, if a wife goes back to her parents' house, you'd at least expect a phone call, right? But fine. I swore to myself that I wouldn't go back or contact him until he made the first move. Days passed without any contact from him. No calls, no emails. He didn't even come to my parents' house. If he wanted to be that thorough, fine, I'd play along. Initially, I was stubborn too, but as the days without contact continued, I started to not care about him. Before I knew it, 6 months had passed since I came back to my parents' house. One day, as I was about to go shopping and opened the front door, there stood Saint, looking furious.
What? What are you doing here?
I had completely forgotten about him, so I blurted out. He must have come to say something to me. What is he going to say? I braced myself as I looked at Saint standing at the door, but he just glared at me silently. So, this childish game is still going on in his mind. If that's the case, I have nothing to say, so he should just leave. As I tried to ignore him and go shopping, he silently tried to enter the house.
What? What are you doing? Stop it!
I hurriedly tried to stop him, who looked puzzled as if he didn't understand why he was being stopped.
Don't just enter someone's house without permission. I'll call the police.
I blurted out at him. Seeing me like that, Saint laughed. You've gotten pretty cheeky for a wife. Saint's voice, which I hadn't heard in a long time, was low and cold.
What? You're the one who ignored me all this time. It's annoying for you to suddenly show up. What? Since when did you get so full of yourself? Don't think you can act all high and mighty just because you're at your parents' house.
Was he always this rude? Full of myself? Me? I never expected to hear that. Saint, still angry, continued to speak to me as I stood there, overwhelmed by his intensity.
Don't mess with me. You've been away for 6 months. You haven't been doing your duties and just lazing around at your parents' house. What the hell?
Wait. Why do I have to listen to this? It's not like I started ignoring you first. As he kept ranting, my anger towards him started to boil over. If that's how it's going to be, I'll say what I want to say too.
It was you who started ignoring me. Why should I be the one getting blamed?
Why are you so angry?
Calm down. Listen, I'll forgive you if you come back now.
He spoke to me condescendingly, but why did he think he could talk to me like that? Hearing this, I told him.
Forgive me? I don't need your forgiveness. You're a stranger to me now.
He looked confused upon hearing this.
What? A stranger? What are you talking about? Don't make me repeat myself. It means exactly what I said.
Saint's face turned bright red like an octopus, and he started yelling again.
Stop talking nonsense. Have you gone mad living at your parents' house for 6 months? We're married. If we're married, why didn't you try to talk to me? You ignored me because you were dissatisfied, right? Don't jump to conclusions. I never said that. Pack your stuff. We're going home.
Ugh, I've had enough. Why do I have to listen to this from him? He doesn't even know what happened in these 6 months. Poor guy. It's time to show him reality.
You're yelling, but do you know nothing? What? What do you mean? Haven't you heard anything from mother-in-law? I haven't heard anything. What are you talking about?
He really doesn't know anything. Let me tell you then.
Your mother brought the divorce papers. They had your signature on them, and since I didn't want to stay with you any longer, I signed them too.
A month after I came back to my parents' house. Chloe called me, and I went to a nearby restaurant. There, Chloe handed me the divorce papers with Saint's signature. What is this all about?
What do you mean? Saint told me you haven't been coming home and you haven't had a proper conversation.
Chloe's eyes were just as cold as the look Saint gave me. Did he ask you to give me these divorce papers?
Yes, he did.
I couldn't help but feel relieved at that moment. I wouldn't have to stay with him anymore. Thinking about that made me feel much better.
All right. I'll sign for the divorce then.
So, with both Saint and my signatures on the divorce papers, I took them to the family court that same day.
So that's it. Got it? We're not married anymore.
When I clearly told him that we were divorced, his confidence vanished, and he started to panic. His face turned pale, and he began to sweat.
No, that's not true. I only gave those to my mother to calm her down.
Who gets calmed down by divorce papers from their child? I was exasperated by his response.
Really?
And?
I mean it. I never intended to file those divorce papers. They're invalid.
If he never intended to file them, he wouldn't have signed them. And since they've already been submitted to the court, it's not that simple to invalidate them.
Just so you know, they're already submitted to the court, and they can't be invalidated. You can just apologize to the court, and they'll retract it, right? I'll apologize with you. Wouldn't it be hard for you to be divorced?
How much does he underestimate me? Does he think I'd be troubled by a divorce? That's ridiculous.
I'm not troubled at all. No, you would be. We're not young anymore, and with a divorce record, who would want you? That's why I'm saying we can undo the divorce, and you should be happy about that.
Even now, he continues to speak like he's superior. Is that all he can do, act high and mighty? Why did I ever marry such a guy? I thought, astonished by his words.
You know, everything you've said is all about you. We can't undo the divorce, and I have no problem separating from you. Besides, I already have someone else.
It seemed like he didn't understand what I was saying. He just stood there in silence.
Let me repeat it so you can understand. I'm seeing someone else, not you.
This time, he finally understood. He suddenly started shouting.
What do you mean by that? Are you lying because you don't want to come back? I'm not lying. It's the truth. That's a lie. You're mocking me. I won't forgive you.
He can say he won't forgive me, but it's the truth. How can I make him believe it? As I was struggling with that, I sensed someone behind me.
Is everything all right? I heard some loud talking.
Standing behind me was my boyfriend, Rocky.
Yeah, I'm fine. Sorry for worrying you. It's all right, but I wondered what was taking you so long when you said you were going shopping.
Saint looked up at Rocky, who had just come out of my parents' house. No wonder he was shocked. Rocky recently started working at the same company as Saint and me, doing field work. Because of that, he didn't know Saint well. Rocky had been a rugby player for a long time, so he was tall and had a very muscular build.
Millie, who is this guy? A friend? Oh, him?
He's my ex-husband. While Rocky and I were talking, he couldn't say a word. He seemed overwhelmed by Rocky's imposing physique.
Nice to meet you.
Oh, nice to meet you. He barely managed to respond to Rocky's greeting and took a step back.
So, what does your ex-husband want? He isn't causing any trouble for you, is he?
Rocky asked Saint with a sharp look. Realizing he was in a bad position, he replied, No. I'm not causing any trouble. He then turned to leave my parents' house.
Next time you come here, I'll call the police without hesitation.
I pushed him out of the doorway and closed the door. He was so intimidated by my boyfriend. He wouldn't come back again. As expected, Saint didn't come back to my parents' house after that. In the end, it was because he started ignoring me for his own convenience that things became irreparable. Moreover, he signed the divorce papers his mother handed over, leading to a real divorce. What an idiot. It was all Saint's own doing. A week later.
Hey, have you heard from your ex-husband recently? Huh? Oh, I forgot about him until you mentioned it.
If he hadn't brought up him, I wouldn't have even remembered. He hadn't contacted me, but now that he mentioned it, I was curious. I decided to call Roseanne, a mutual friend of Saint and me, to ask about him.
How's Saint doing these days? I haven't seen him at work. Oh, he's been doing badly since the divorce. He's lost his spirit. Really? I thought he'd be his usual self. Actually, he quit his job 3 days ago.
I was shocked by what she said. 3 days ago, right after he came to my parents' house. And no one mentioned he quit his job. What? Why so suddenly?
Apparently, after the divorce, he lost motivation and started hating everything. He told the company he was quitting to take care of his mother, but he didn't want anyone to worry, so he asked them not to spread it around. In reality, he's just drinking every day and wasting his time. I see. Thanks for telling me.
I hung up the phone. I had no idea he was that shocked. Well, it's his own fault, so it doesn't really matter. Since I just got divorced, I can't marry Rocky right away. But if things continue to go well, we plan to get married next year. This time, I want to build a happy family with good communication.
Unfortunately, we don't need someone with a disability. Do your best to live on your own. What is this?
There was a piece of paper on the table. It was addressed to me. Unlike my sister Chloe, I was born with no control over my legs. It must have been troublesome for them. Then, my smartphone rang. It was a call from my dad.
Hello?
Is that you, Brittany? Did you see the letter?
I saw it, but... Well, that's how it is. Goodbye. Wait a minute.
What do you want?
Of course, I have something to say. What is this letter? It says exactly what it means.
I'm tired of raising a daughter like you. Don't worry about us. He hung up the phone abruptly. Desperate to figure out what to do, I called my mom next.
Hello, Mom? From the sound of your voice, I guess you saw the letter.
They said I'm a burden because of my disability. They even called me a monster.
I see, but you don't have to worry. What? Because you are.
8 years have passed since my mom's shocking revelation. One day, my dad showed up at my high-rise condo.
How can someone like you afford to live in a place like this? Would you like me to tell you?
I shared the secret with my dad. He went into a frenzy and started experiencing hell. My name is Brittany, and I'm 26 years old now. I live comfortably on the 55th floor of a high-rise condo. But achieving this lifestyle was no easy feat. I was born with a rare disease that causes my muscles to weaken over time. I still remember one thing my dad said to me. I think it was when I was in kindergarten.
Why were you born this way? Isn't this your fault? What?
Chloe was born without any problems. Chloe is my sister, 2 years older than me. I was listening to my parents' conversation from the living room. My room was next to the living room, so I could hear everything. Even though I was young, I understood that they were complaining about me.
You don't have to say that. Then you take care of her from now on. That's not fair.
I'm leaving it up to you. I quietly pulled the comforter over my head. From that day on, their attitude towards me became noticeably harsher. Even when I spoke to them, they wouldn't give me a proper response. It was because I was born with a disability. Since then, my mom has always tried to be considerate so that I wouldn't worry. However, despite everything, I did what I could on my own, and I never felt sorry for myself because I was born this way. I think Chloe's influence played a big part in that. Sorry, I overslept a bit because I stayed up late last night.
It's okay. I managed to get dressed halfway.
I'll help you.
It's fine. You need to get ready first, Chloe.
Since I started elementary school, Chloe had been helping me with my morning routine. Dad didn't approve of Chloe helping me and would complain.
How long are you going to keep doing this? I'm almost done. Brittany can do it herself. Come on, you can do it, right? Yeah.
While I was getting dressed, Chloe would sneak in to help when Dad wasn't looking. Sorry about earlier.
It's okay. I can't keep troubling you, Chloe.
Then Chloe hugged me. Why all of a sudden?
I'll protect you, Brittany. Then I'll do my best to protect you too, Chloe.
I felt our bond as sisters grow stronger. We tried not to talk much in front of Dad. We thought if he saw us getting along well, he would say something. I'm off to work.
Okay. Have a good day.
Dad would sometimes go to work even on his days off. Those days were like heaven for me. Normally, if I played games or something, he'd get irrationally angry and tell me to stop.
Since Dad's not here today, let's play a lot. Is that okay? Sure, but don't overdo it. I know.
Then I enjoyed playing games with Chloe in the living room. It must have been about 2 hours later. Mom had gone shopping at this time. I heard the door open and thought Mom had returned.
What are you doing?
Dad's voice made me turn around.
Dad, why are you here?
What about work?
I forgot something, so I came back. Where's Mom? She's out shopping. So, what are you two doing? Tell me.
Looking into Dad's eyes, I felt paralyzed with fear. It felt like my whole body turned to stone. Chloe noticed and tried to protect me.
We were playing a game. But it was my idea to invite Brittany. It's not her fault. Really? Yes, really.
However, as Dad pulled Chloe's arm, I feared she might get hit. Overwhelmed with a sense of duty to protect Chloe, I spoke up. It was me. I wanted to play.
What? So, please don't hit Chloe. So it was you. Go to your room. Yes.
I obeyed and headed to my room. At least the house was built to be wheelchair accessible. From my room, I heard Dad yelling. I cursed my helplessness. As I pondered, the door opened. I tensed, thinking it was Dad, but it was Mom.
Are you okay? I'm fine. What about Chloe? She's fine.
I tried to head to the living room.
Where are you going? I need to help Chloe. Really, it's okay. If you go, Dad will just get angrier. Okay, I'll stay here.
Mom was right. If I went, it might make things worse. I decided to trust Mom's assurance. I'm sorry. I should have been stronger. Dad was a domineering husband, and Mom was doing her best to avoid provoking him.
It's not your fault. Thank you for everything.
After a while, Chloe came to my room.
Chloe! Dad's gone to work, so it's okay now. Did he say anything to you? Yeah, a little. But don't worry about it, Brittany. I'm fine.
No matter the situation, Chloe always smiled. Despite going through the same hardships, she remained strong. Mom also stood between Dad and me, shielding me from his rage. I was always being helped. Determined not to burden them, I tried to find ways to help myself. Things changed when Chloe entered middle school. She started distancing herself from me. She used to help with daily tasks like dressing and bathroom needs. But as she got busier with sports and friends, I understood it couldn't be helped. I thought I just needed to endure it. I need to try harder. By then, my hands had also weakened, making it difficult to hold heavy objects. But I didn't give up. One day, I was organizing my room, putting away books from a shelf. That's when it happened. As I grabbed the shelf, it wobbled, and things started falling around me. Ouch. I need to pick this up quickly. However, because I was sitting in my wheelchair, I couldn't reach down to pick things up. As I struggled desperately, the door was thrown open.
What's all this noise? What the hell is going on here?
This was the worst. The last person I wanted to see this mess was Dad.
Well, this is...
I tried to say something, anything, but the words wouldn't come out right. To Dad, it probably sounded like I was making excuses.
Who do you think is going to clean this up? Well,
I had no memory of Dad ever helping with anything. If he had, it was so insignificant that I couldn't recall it. Of course, I didn't say that out loud.
Honestly, why do you always have to cause trouble?
He sighed dramatically, looking at me with exasperation. He had no idea how it felt to be on the receiving end of that gaze. Dad's lecture showed no signs of stopping.
Unlike Chloe, you can't do anything, can you? Do you understand that? Huh?
I know I might not be able to do as much as Chloe, but I still want to do what I can on my own. If I was going to get yelled at anyway, I decided to voice my thoughts to Dad. I had a faint hope that maybe he'd understand. Do what you can, huh? Yes. Now he started to laugh out loud.
What?
You're funny. You think you can do anything? You, a disabled person? I had expected some harsh words, but this was complete rejection. He kept laughing. This wasn't how a father should treat his daughter. From that moment, I stopped thinking. I just waited for time to pass.
Hey! Are you even listening?
I didn't even respond.
Disgusting.
He spat the words at me and left the room. Alone in my cluttered room, I cried. From that day on, I swore I wouldn't cry anymore, even though I was just a child. From then on, Mom mainly took care of me. Of course, Dad didn't do anything. He didn't even seem to care.
Oh dear, you have a fever, don't you?
Huh? Do I? You should stay home today.
But I'm fine. I can go.
I tried desperately to convince Mom, but she insisted I stay home to avoid any complications. So, I stayed home that day. The reason I wanted to go to school so badly was because Dad happened to be off that day. I wanted to avoid being alone with him at all costs. But then, something unexpected happened. Are you all right? He asked as he entered my room. I pretended to be asleep, hoping he would leave soon. But Dad didn't leave. I covered myself with the comforter, tense, and waited. I'm leaving these here for you. When I finally sat up, I saw sports drinks and jelly cups on the table. Despite myself, I felt a surge of happiness. I had never been cared for like this before. My mind was a whirlwind of confusion. What was his motive? That day, Dad came to check on me several times. Each time, I pretended to be asleep. Are you all right? Mom asked when she returned from her part-time job. Yeah, I don't think I have a fever anymore. Did something happen?
It's just... Dad seemed kind today. Oh, good.
Good? What was she talking about? Actually, I asked Dad to take care of you today.
You did? It seems like it went well. Well, he didn't really talk to me, but I was surprised. I gave him a stern talk. I hope he'll be kinder to you now.
I felt conflicted. I had tried so hard to keep my emotions in check, and now I didn't know what to think. After that, just as Mom said, Dad began to show more concern for me. He started helping more and even began to talk to me a bit.
It looks like things are going well between you and Dad, don't they?
Does it?
It makes me happy to see you getting along with him. But there's still everything that happened before.
I know. It won't be easy. Honestly, I'd love to spend more time with you, too.
It's okay,
I said quickly, giving Chloe a smile. I hoped my relationship with Dad would continue to improve. However, when I started middle school, Dad's attitude toward me became stricter. I understood why. It was because Chloe had important exams coming up. I thought I could deal with it for that reason, but then I realized there was more to it. I need to go to the bathroom, I told Dad. I could manage it on my own, but I chose to ask him on purpose.
I'm busy right now. I can't help you. What? You're a middle schooler now. If you can't even go to the bathroom by yourself, what are you going to do?
I realized this was the real Dad. The kindness he had shown felt like a fleeting dream. And yet, the changes didn't stop there. Mom also started becoming distant. Mom? I need something. Sorry, I'm busy. Maybe later. I couldn't ask Chloe for help. As a result, my priority in the family kept dropping. Even when I asked for something, I was ignored. Even though I was growing up in middle school, it was painful not to connect with my family.
From now on, Brittany will eat in her room. What? Why? Understood?
Mom and Chloe were silent. So, I started eating alone in my room more often. One reason for this was the result of a hospital checkup. My condition wasn't good, and the illness was progressing. Dad decided this after seeing the results. I began to wonder if I was really part of this family.
Why only Brittany?
I heard this while studying.
Just get ready. If Brittany isn't going, then I'll stay home too.
Is that what you want?
Chloe, your first choice was a private school, right? Yes, but...
Stop this already.
Are you defying me too? You can stay, but you'll give up on the private school.
I felt like I had overheard something terrible. I finally understood the mystery. Dad was using the entrance exams to blackmail Mom and Chloe. I had never harbored any resentment towards Dad before, but this was too much. Yet, what could I do when my body wasn't cooperating? This thought occupied my mind from that day onward.
I'm going out for a bit.
I'm sorry, Brittany.
I'll be fine.
In the distance, I heard Dad calling out. It seemed he was telling them to hurry.
Hurry up, go.
I put on a brave face, not wanting to burden them with my sadness. They regularly went out without me. After a while, I got used to it. At first, they would hide their outings from me, but eventually, Dad stopped being discreet.
All right. Let's eat out today. Come on, let's go. Isn't this too sudden? That's right. It's my decision. Move it. Oh, and Brittany, you stay home.
Chloe, sitting next to me, started to protest, but I grabbed her arm to stop her.
I'll be fine. Go ahead. Brittany seems to understand much better. Hey,
do you know what they say about me at work? You don't, do you? Dad started talking about how pitiful his life was.
I'm miserable at work because I'm the father of a disabled daughter. Do you have any idea how humiliating that is?
Even if he said that, there was no way I could understand. Even if it were true, taking it out on his daughter was inexcusable. As a father, he was a complete failure. However, there was no way I, a middle school student, could defy my parent and survive. Especially in my case. I needed a wheelchair to move around, and having support made a huge difference.
I'll manage on my own. It's okay.
Mom and Chloe looked at me with concern.
Besides, if I go with you, I'll just be a burden, and people will stare, right?
Chloe didn't seem entirely convinced by my words, but she went out with our parents. It was wise not to defy Dad in his current state. I thought it was a prudent decision. Even after I entered high school, Dad's attitude towards me remained unchanged, but then something happened that made all the previous incidents seem trivial. What should I do? I watched my family leave and returned to my room. I couldn't help but wonder how long I would be trapped in this life. It happened during the summer break of my third year in middle school. I'm sorry, but can you take care of Brittany for 3 days?
Aren't you coming with us? You see, Brittany is a student preparing for exams and wants to focus on studying.
Is that okay with you?
Yes.
In that case, leave her to us. And so, I was left at my grandparents' house. Dad breathed out a lie so easily. He didn't seem to feel any guilt towards his own parents. Seeing Dad wave at me with a smile filled me with an indescribable fear. Once Dad and the others were out of sight, Grandma asked me,
It's just us here, so no need to hold back. What?
"Are you really okay with not going?"
If I'm there, Mom and Chloe won't have fun. I absolutely hate that.
I replied with determination. "You're so kind, Brittany."
Not really. But here, you don't have to worry about anyone's eyes. Do whatever you like. Okay. Thank you.
Grandma might have understood what I was thinking. But she didn't pry. I felt truly comfortable. As a middle schooler, I didn't have the power or wisdom to change my situation. Besides, it wasn't pleasant to have others prying into my life. So, I was grateful that Grandma just watched over me warmly. 3 days later, Mom and Chloe came to pick me up.
Wait, is it just the two of you?
I'm sorry. Victor went home ahead of us.
Oh, I see.
Was Brittany okay?
She was such a good girl. My advice is to keep an eye on her and make sure she's all right.
Okay. I was listening to Mom and Grandma's conversation from behind a pillar. On the way home.
I'm okay, really. You don't have to push yourself.
That's right. We're on your side, Brittany.
I know, but I don't want anything to happen to you too because of me.
When we got back home, Dad continued to give me the cold shoulder. Things returned to their usual routine. Normally, this would have broken my spirit, but with Mom and Chloe supporting me, I barely managed to hold on. However, even they started to avoid me, probably because Dad had ordered them to. Being ignored by Dad was something I was used to, but having Mom and Chloe treat me like that was heart-wrenching. It felt like I was truly all alone.
It's okay. Hang in there, you can do it.
Eventually, those words became my mantra. After that, I tried to stay in my room as much as possible when I was home. I thought that if I stayed in my room, I wouldn't have to interact with anyone and wouldn't have to deal with any unnecessary hurt. However, I realized that this was a mistake. It was a Sunday morning in the spring of my 10th grade year. When I woke up, the house seemed unusually quiet. I went to the living room and found a piece of paper on the table. "Sorry, but we don't need someone like you.
Do your best to survive." What is this?
There was a note on the table. It was addressed to me. Sure, I couldn't use my legs properly, but I didn't deserve this. Dad must have reached his limit. Then my smartphone rang with a call from Dad.
Hello?
Is this Brittany? Did you see the letter?
Yes, I saw it, but...
Well, that's how it is. Bye.
Wait a minute.
What do you want?
Of course, I have something to say. What's with the letter?
It is what it is. I'm tired of raising a daughter like you. Don't worry about us. With that, he abruptly hung up the phone. Desperately thinking about what to do, I decided to call Mom. Hello, Mom?
From the sound of your voice, I guess you saw the letter.
They said someone like me is a burden. They even called me a monster.
I see. But don't worry. What? Because you're not the daughter of that worthless man. What are you talking about? I don't understand. Listen carefully. Call the number I'm about to give you. Wait a minute. Explain it properly.
I'm sorry. Victor is nearby. I'll call you back. I was left in a state of shock. If what Mom was saying was true, then what does it mean that I'm not Dad's child? I couldn't find an answer no matter how much I thought about it, so I called the number Mom gave me. The person who answered the phone introduced himself as a lawyer. His name was Mr. Williams.
Mom told me to call you. Yes, I understand. I'd like to discuss things further with you.
So, I went to the lawyer's office as directed. There, I learned the meaning of Mom's words. And I found out about my true birth. At first, I was in complete disbelief, but it seemed that Mom and Chloe had kept it hidden for my sake. After that, I started living on my own. Thanks to Mr. Williams, I was able to live comfortably. 8 years quickly passed since Mom's revelation. And in these 8 years, there were some happy moments too. Chloe graduated from college and started living on her own. Chloe? What's up?
Sorry for the sudden call. It seems Dad found out where you live. What?
Oh, and just so you know, neither Mom nor I said anything to him.
I understand.
Actually, even after living separately, Chloe and Mom kept in touch with me. Of course, they kept it a secret from Dad. So, does that mean he's coming here?
Probably.
I see. All right, it's time for some payback, don't you think?
What?
I'm able to live like this because of you and Mom, right?
That might be true, but...
So, let me repay you a little. And there's the matter with Mom too.
That's true. I did leave the house in a hurry. It's not your fault, Chloe.
A week after Chloe's call. As she predicted, Dad showed up at my condo. The doorbell rang, and I went to answer it. Hello?
It's been a while, Brittany.
What are you doing here?
How can a cripple like you afford to live in a high-rise condo like this?
Well, why don't you tell me?
How dare you talk to your dad like that?
Glancing behind Dad, I saw Mom standing there looking apologetic. From her expression, I could tell she had been struggling even after I left.
Shall I explain it to you then? What?
I began explaining to Dad how I was able to live like this. As I spoke, he started hurling insults at Mom.
What is this about? I knew nothing about it. I intended to tell you at first.
But when you found out Brittany had a disability, you made a disgusted face.
Of course I did. Who wants to raise someone else's disabled child?
I remembered the shock I felt when Mr. Williams told me. He explained that I was the child of Mom's best friend. My real dad had died in an accident, and my real mom was terminally ill with only a short time left to live. That's when they turned to my current mom. In other words, I was adopted. Moreover, my real mom had left a substantial amount of money to ensure I wouldn't face hardships. The house I now live in had originally belonged to my real parents.
Blaming Mom is not right. Shut up! No, I won't. And I know about the horrible things you've done to her.
Even after I started living separately, Dad's rampages didn't stop. His aggression, which had previously been directed at me, now targeted Mom. Isn't that right? I looked to Mom for agreement. She nodded quietly.
You have no proof. None.
What if I said I do?
What?
I took out my smartphone and played a recording. It captured Dad verbally abusing Mom and even raising his hand against her. See? Do you get it now?
When did you?
Even though we lived apart, we never stopped communicating. You didn't notice, did you? Well, of course not.
Damn you!
Yelling won't help. We have plenty of evidence. You know what this means, right?
What are you planning?
I gave Mom a signal with my eyes.
I'm leaving you. What?
It's only natural.
But don't worry, Mom will be living here with me. You can't do this to me.
I don't care about your opinion, Dad. He probably didn't know, but this had been planned for a long time.
You little cripple, you think you can get away with this?
Dad, in his rage, seemed ready to resort to violence. At that moment,
Stop it!
a voice came from the back of the house.
Who the hell are you? This is my husband. Husband? Nice to meet you. I'm Aaron, her husband.
Dad, stunned, lowered his raised hand.
Did you know about this too?
Mom nodded.
Of course.
Even Chloe knows.
You did this without your parents' consent. How dare you?
I'm an adult now. There's no issue. Anyway, why don't you leave? It would have been great if he left then, but of course, he wasn't giving up that easily.
Wait a minute. You've inherited more than just this house, haven't you? And, as your parent, I have a right to that inheritance.
What nonsense. He had no such right. Seeing his desperate face almost made me laugh.
What's so funny? You're just so off the mark.
Dad stomped his foot in frustration.
I'm sure you'll have a tough time ahead.
Good luck.
You'll also have to deal with the compensation from the divorce trial. Oh, and I've already talked to Grandpa and Grandma. So don't bother trying to rely on them. You planned all of this.
Dad suddenly looked very subdued. Maybe he finally realized his mistakes.
We have nothing more to talk about. Goodbye. Wait, please. I'm sorry.
Dad made a sincere apology, something I had never seen before. It made me wonder what it felt like to swallow your pride and apologize to someone you've always disregarded. But no matter what he said, my feelings wouldn't change.
There's no point in doing that, just leave already. Even after all this?
Yes.
If you don't leave, I'll call the police. I have evidence, and you might get arrested.
My words seemed to scare Victor, and he fled the scene. I exhaled deeply, feeling the tension release. Good job.
Thank you. I was really nervous.
But are you sure this is okay?
Living here together?
Yes. It's not a problem. We talked about it and decided together. Right?
That's right. Here, we have freedom.
Then, I told Chloe about the outcome.
I'm so glad.
See? It turned out okay, didn't it?
I really wanted to come over there too.
Your support is enough. Come visit us sometime.
Yes, I'll do that.
Thus, Diana and I were freed from Victor's curse. There was still one final step, but we celebrated that night with a toast. After that, Diana and I visited our lawyer, Mr. Williams. Since we already had all the evidence, things proceeded smoothly.
Thank you for everything.
You're welcome.
It's my job after all. Please, make sure my dad gets punished. The police will handle the assault, but I'll take care of the compensation in the divorce.
2 weeks after our consultation, Victor and Diana's divorce was finalized. Now, Diana wouldn't have to endure Victor's insults or abuse anymore. I was truly happy about that. After the divorce was finalized, we moved all of Diana's belongings to our house.
Thank you so much. It's okay. This is the least I can do. Besides, I'll keep repaying you for all the help you've given me. You don't have to do that.
I want to, so it's fine. Diana joined us, and a new chapter of our lives began. Chloe also started visiting whenever she could.
Finally, we have peace.
Thank you, Chloe, for everything.
Of course. Even though we're not blood related, Brittany, you're my only precious sister.
Yes. I noticed Diana had a concerned look on her face. What's wrong?
Oh, it's a call from Victor.
A call? Let me see. I took Diana's smartphone and answered the call. I was wrong. Please come back.
Diana is not coming back.
Is that you, Brittany? I was not myself before. Please give me another chance.
Sorry, that's impossible. Don't call again.
I hung up and blocked his number, then returned the phone to Diana.
Was everything okay?
Absolutely. So, don't worry. Apparently, Victor quit his job. I don't know what happened after that. He must be living alone somewhere. But it doesn't matter where he is or what he's doing anymore. On the other hand, we are enjoying happy days together as a family. I've never felt this liberated in my life. I want to continue walking a happy path with my family.